I wore my sister-in-law's earring to family dinner. The moment she saw it on my ear, she went pale and ran to the bathroom. My husband started sweating. Nobody understood what was happening, but I had my phone in my purse with bank statements, hotel receipts, and deleted messages I recovered. That night, in front of everyone, I was going to show them exactly what Mark and Jessica had been doing behind our backs. The dining room at Linda and Robert's house was full that Saturday night, March 14th. Everyone was there for Robert's 65th birthday. The table had roast beef, mashed potatoes, salad, and a chocolate cake Linda had made that morning. I walked in at 6:45 p.m., wearing a black dress and the pearl earring I found in Mark's car. Just one earring, the left one. Jessica saw me first. She was holding a glass of wine near the kitchen door, and when her eyes went to my ear, the color drained from her face. The glass almost slipped from her hand. She put it down fast on the counter and walked straight to the bathroom without saying a word. Tyler, her husband, looked confused. Mark was talking to his dad near the fireplace, and when he turned and saw me, he froze. His face went red, then white. He knew exactly what that earring meant. Linda came over and hugged me. She smelled like vanilla and wine. She said how beautiful I looked and asked if I wanted something to drink. I said yes. White wine. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. Mark came over and kissed my cheek. His lips were cold. He whispered near my ear, asking what I was doing. I smiled and said I was just wearing something I found. He didn't say anything after that. Tyler asked where Jessica was. I said I saw her go to the bathroom. He nodded and sat down at the table. Linda started serving food. Mark sat next to me and kept glancing at the earring. I could feel the tension coming off him like heat. Robert made a toast. Everyone raised their glasses. Jessica came back from the bathroom 10 minutes later. Her eyes were red, and she avoided looking at me. She sat across the table next to Tyler and stared at her plate. To understand how I got here, I need to go back 3 weeks. It was Friday, February 21st, around 4 p.m. I was cleaning Mark's car in our garage in Denver. We live in a neighborhood called Highlands, in a 2-story house we bought 4 years ago. Mark drives a gray Honda Accord, and he always leaves it messy with coffee cups and papers. I was vacuuming the passenger side when I saw something shiny under the seat. I pulled it out. It was a pearl earring. Expensive. Real pearl. Gold setting. Small but elegant. I had never seen it before, and it wasn't mine. I stood there holding it, trying to think. Maybe it was from a coworker. Mark works in sales at a tech company, and sometimes he drives clients around. But the earring was under the seat, not on top. That was strange. I put it in my pocket and finished cleaning. When Mark got home at 7 p.m., I showed it to him. I asked if he knew whose it was. He looked at it for maybe 2 seconds and said no. He had no idea. Maybe someone dropped it. He went to the kitchen and opened a beer. His voice was normal, but I noticed he didn't look at me when he answered. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. I looked at the earring under the lamp in our bedroom. It was too expensive to belong to just anyone. The gold was stamped $14K. I Googled the style and found similar ones online for around $300. I put it in my jewelry box and went to bed, but I didn't sleep well. The next morning, Saturday, I started thinking about where I had seen that style before. Then it hit me. Christmas dinner, December 25th, at Linda and Robert's house. Jessica wore pearl earrings that night. I remembered because she kept touching them and said Tyler had given them to her for Christmas. I went to my phone and looked at the photos from that dinner. There was one photo of Jessica and me near the tree. I zoomed in. The earrings looked identical. Same size, same setting, same pearls. My stomach dropped. I sat on the couch and tried to think. Why would Jessica's earring be in Mark's car? They saw each other at family events, but Mark never drove her anywhere. She had her own car, a white Toyota. Tyler always drove when they came to dinners. I opened my laptop and logged into our bank account. Mark and I share everything. I went through the statements from the last 6 months. January, December, November, October, September, August. In October, there were 2 charges I didn't recognize. One was from a hotel called the Maven in downtown Denver on October 12th. The charge was $287. The other was from a restaurant called Rioja on the same night, $143. I asked Mark about that weekend, and he said he had been in Colorado Springs for a work conference. I checked his work calendar on our shared Google account. It said Colorado Springs, October 12th and 13th, but the hotel charge was from Denver, not Colorado Springs. I kept looking. November 3rd, another hotel charge. This one was from the Crawford Hotel, $312. That weekend, Mark told me he was in Boulder meeting a client. December 8th, another charge from the Maven, $295. Mark said he was working late those nights, staying at a hotel near the office because of a big project. I never questioned it, because he sometimes did that when work was heavy. But now I was questioning everything. I opened his text messages on our laptop. We have iCloud Sync, so I can see his phone on the computer. Most of his recent texts were normal. Work stuff, messages to me, messages to Tyler about a Broncos game. But I noticed something. There were gaps. In October, November, and December, there were whole days with no messages. That wasn't normal. Mark texts constantly. I Googled how to recover deleted iPhone messages. One article said I could use a backup. I checked iCloud and saw we had automatic backups. I downloaded a program called Dr. Phone and recovered messages from November. There they were. Messages between Mark and Jessica. November 2nd, the day before the hotel charge. Jessica: can you get out tomorrow night? Mark: yes. I'll tell Sarah I have a client dinner. Jessica: I'll tell Tyler I'm going to book club. Same place? Mark: yes. I'll book the room. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I kept reading. There were dozens of messages. They went back to August. Jessica saying she missed him. Mark saying he couldn't stop thinking about her. Jessica saying Tyler was working late again and she felt alone. Mark saying I didn't understand him anymore. They talked about hotel rooms, about lying to us, about how guilty they felt but how they couldn't stop. If you want to know what else those messages said and what I did next, keep watching, because what I found after that was even worse. I printed everything, bank statements, screenshots of messages. I made a folder on my laptop with all the evidence. Then I started thinking about what to do. I could confront Mark right away, but he would deny it. I could confront Jessica, but she would lie too. I needed something bigger, something that would make them confess in front of everyone. That's when I thought about the earring. I waited. For 2 weeks, I acted normal. I cooked dinner. I asked Mark about his day. I smiled when Jessica texted me about a movie she wanted to see. Inside, I was falling apart, but I didn't show it. Mark didn't suspect anything. On March 10th, Linda called and reminded me about Robert's birthday dinner on March 14th. She asked if I could bring a salad. I said yes, of course, and that's when I made my plan. The night before the dinner, I looked at the earring again. I put it on. It fit perfectly. I practiced what I would say. I imagined Jessica's face. I imagined Mark trying to explain. I put the printed bank statements and message screenshots in my purse, inside a folder. I barely slept. Now, sitting at that dinner table, I watched them. Jessica was pushing food around her plate. Mark was drinking wine faster than usual. Tyler was talking about a case he was working on. Linda was laughing at something Robert said. Nobody knew what was about to happen. I took a sip of my wine and touched the earring. Jessica looked up and saw my hand near my ear. She looked like she was going to be sick. I waited until everyone had finished eating. Linda brought out the cake. We sang happy birthday. Robert blew out the candles. Then Linda asked if anyone wanted coffee. I said yes. Jessica said no, she had a headache. Tyler put his hand on her shoulder and asked if she was okay. She nodded but didn't look at him. That's when I decided it was time. I put my coffee cup down and looked across the table at Jessica. I said her name. She looked up and her eyes were already wet. I asked if she recognized my earring. The table went quiet. Tyler looked at me, then at Jessica. Mark's hand tightened around his wine glass. Linda smiled, confused, and said it was pretty. Robert was cutting another piece of cake. Jessica's voice came out shaky. She said no, she didn't recognize it. I nodded and said that was strange, because I found it in Mark's car 3 weeks ago. Under the passenger seat, Tyler's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Mark said my name like a warning. I ignored him. I said the earring looked exactly like the ones Jessica wore at Christmas dinner, the ones Tyler gave her. Jessica's face went red. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. Tyler turned to her and asked what was going on. She said nothing. It was just a misunderstanding. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder. I put it on the table, right next to the birthday cake. Linda asked what that was. I opened it and took out the first bank statement. I said it was a charge from the Maven Hotel on October 12th. I looked at Mark and said he told me he was in Colorado Springs that night for work, but the hotel was in Denver. Mark's face was white. He said I was being crazy, that I was embarrassing him in front of his family. I took out another statement. November 3rd, the Crawford Hotel. December 8th, the Maven again. I put them all on the table. Tyler picked one up and looked at it. He asked Mark what this was about. Mark said he sometimes stayed downtown when he worked late, that it was easier than driving home. I said that would make sense, except Jessica told Tyler she was at book club those same nights. Jessica stood up fast. Her chair almost fell over. She said I was insane, that I was making things up. I took out my phone and opened the screenshots I had saved. I said I recovered deleted messages from Mark's phone. I started reading out loud. November 2nd. Jessica asking Mark if he could get out. Mark saying he would tell me it was a client dinner. Jessica saying she would tell Tyler it was book club. Same place, same room. Linda gasped. Robert put down his fork. Tyler stood up and asked to see my phone. I handed it to him. He scrolled through the screenshots. His face changed with every line he read. Jessica started crying. She said it wasn't what it looked like. Tyler asked how long. She didn't answer. He asked again, louder. She said 8 months. Since August. Mark finally spoke. He said he was sorry, that he didn't mean for it to happen. I laughed. It came out bitter. I said you don't accidentally book hotel rooms for 8 months. You don't accidentally delete messages. You don't accidentally lie to your wife every single week. Linda was crying now, too. She asked Mark how he could do this. Robert just sat there, staring at his plate. Tyler threw my phone on the table. He asked Jessica if she loved Mark. She said no. She loved Tyler. It was just a mistake. Tyler said 8 months isn't a mistake. He asked Mark if he loved me. Mark looked at me. He said yes, but things had been hard between us. I asked what things. He said I was always working, always tired, that we never talked anymore. I said that didn't give him permission to sleep with my sister-in-law. Jessica sat back down and put her face in her hands. She said she was sorry, that she felt terrible, that it just happened. I asked when it started. She said it was at Tyler's birthday party in August. Tyler had a party at a bar downtown on August 18th. I remembered that night. Mark and I got into a fight before we left because I didn't want to go. I had a big presentation at work the next day. We went anyway, but I left early, around 10 p.m. Mark stayed. He came home at 2 a.m. and said the party went late. Jessica said they were both drunk. Tyler had left early to take a work call. She and Mark were talking outside the bar. They kissed. She said it was stupid, that they both regretted it immediately, but then Mark texted her a few days later. They met for coffee, then dinner, then a hotel. She said it became a routine, every few weeks when they could get away. I asked if Tyler knew any of this. Jessica shook her head. Tyler said he had no idea, that he thought everything was fine. He looked broken. He asked Jessica why. She said she didn't know, that she felt ignored, that Tyler was always working, always focused on his cases. She said Mark made her feel special. Tyler said she was special, that he loved her, that he worked hard for their life together. Mark tried to touch my hand. I pulled away. He said we could fix this, that we could go to counseling. I said no. I said I wanted a divorce. Linda started sobbing. She said we could work it out, that every marriage has problems. I said not every marriage has a husband who cheats with his brother's wife. Robert told Mark he was ashamed of him. Mark didn't say anything. Tyler asked Jessica if she wanted a divorce. She said no, that she wanted to fix things. Tyler said he didn't know if he could. He picked up his jacket from the back of his chair and walked out. Jessica ran after him. We heard the front door slam. Mark sat there with his head in his hands. Linda asked me to reconsider, that Mark made a mistake, but we could get through it. I said it wasn't one mistake. It was hundreds. Every lie, every hotel room, every deleted message. I stood up and grabbed my purse. I told Mark I would be staying at my sister's house. I said I would contact a lawyer on Monday. He asked if we could at least talk. I said there was nothing to talk about. I had seen everything I needed to see. I walked out the same door Tyler and Jessica had. The cold March air hit my face. It was 9:30 p.m. I got in my car and drove to my sister Amy's house in Capitol Hill. She lived alone in a small apartment above a coffee shop. When I knocked on her door, she opened it in pajamas. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. I told her everything. She made tea and let me cry on her couch. She said I did the right thing, that Mark didn't deserve me. I slept in her guest room that night, but I didn't really sleep. I kept seeing Jessica's face. I kept hearing Mark's excuses. I kept thinking about 8 months of lies. The next morning, Sunday, March 15th, I woke up at 6 a.m. My phone had 14 missed calls from Mark and 6 from Linda. There were texts, too. Mark saying we needed to talk. Linda saying she was praying for us. Jessica sent one message at 11 p.m. the night before. It just said, "I'm sorry." I didn't respond to any of them. Amy made coffee and toast. She asked what my plan was. I said I was going to find a divorce lawyer first thing Monday morning. She asked if I was sure. I said I had never been more sure of anything. She hugged me and said I could stay with her as long as I needed. I thanked her. Then my phone rang. It was Tyler. I answered. His voice was rough, like he had been crying. He asked if I had more evidence. I said yes. I had months of bank statements and messages. He asked if I could send them to him. He said he was filing for divorce and needed everything I had. I said I would email it to him today. He thanked me. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. He said Jessica had been acting strange for weeks, that she had been sick in the mornings, and he thought she might be pregnant. I felt like the room was spinning. I asked if he was sure. He said she took a test yesterday morning before the dinner. It was positive, but now he didn't know if the baby was his or Mark's. I didn't know what to say. Tyler said he was getting a paternity test as soon as possible. I said I was sorry. He said it wasn't my fault. Then he hung up. I sat on Amy's couch and stared at the wall. A baby. Jessica was pregnant, and it might be Mark's. I felt sick. Amy asked what happened. I told her. She said this was worse than she thought. I agreed. I sent Tyler all the evidence I had. Bank statements, screenshots, hotel addresses, dates, everything. Then I called my best friend Rachel. She was a paralegal at a law firm downtown. She gave me the name of a divorce attorney named Patricia Winters. On Monday morning, March 16th, I called Patricia's office at 9 a.m. Her secretary said she had an opening at 2 p.m. I took it. I went to the office on 17th Street, near Union Station. Patricia was in her 50s, sharp, professional. She listened to everything and looked at my evidence. She said I had a strong case. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state, but the evidence would help with asset division. She said we could file that week. I asked how long the process would take. She said at least 6 months, maybe longer if Mark contested. I said I wanted to move fast. She said she would draft the papers and have them ready by Wednesday. I signed a retainer agreement. The fee was $3,500 up front. I paid with my personal credit card. When I left her office, I felt lighter, like I was finally taking control. But what I didn't know was that Mark had already made his own plan, and it was going to make everything so much worse. On Tuesday, March 17th, I went back to the house in Highlands to pick up more clothes. I had been at Amy's for 3 days, and I needed things from my closet. I drove there at 11 a.m., hoping Mark would be at work. His car wasn't in the driveway, so I thought I was safe. I used my key to get in. The house felt cold and empty. There were dirty dishes in the sink and empty beer bottles on the counter. Mark's jacket was on the couch. I went upstairs to our bedroom. I started packing a suitcase with clothes, shoes, and toiletries. I was grabbing things from the bathroom when I heard the front door open. My heart stopped. I heard Mark's voice calling my name. I didn't answer. He came up the stairs. When he saw me in the bedroom with the suitcase, he looked desperate. He said we needed to talk. I said there was nothing to talk about. He blocked the doorway. Mark said he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He said Jessica meant nothing to him, that it was just physical, that he loved me. I told him to move. He didn't. He said he had been stupid, that he would do anything to fix this. I said the only thing he could do was sign the divorce papers when they came. His face changed. He asked if I had already filed. I said not yet, but I would this week. He stepped closer. He said he wasn't going to let me throw away 6 years of marriage over this. I said he already threw it away when he slept with Jessica. He said I was being dramatic. That made me angry. I told him dramatic was finding hotel charges for 8 months. Dramatic was reading messages where he said I didn't understand him. Dramatic was wearing my sister-in-law's earring to expose them both. He didn't have a response to that. I pushed past him and grabbed my suitcase. He followed me down the stairs. He said if I left, I was making a mistake. I said the mistake was marrying him. That hurt him. I could see it in his face, but I didn't care anymore. I got in my car and drove back to Amy's. My hands were shaking the whole way. That afternoon, Patricia called. She said the divorce papers were ready. She asked if I wanted to serve Mark myself or use a process server. I said use a server. She said it would happen by Friday. I thanked her. Then Tyler called. He said he had an appointment with the lawyer that afternoon. He said Jessica was staying with her mother in Lakewood. He said they hadn't spoken since Saturday night. I asked about the pregnancy. He said Jessica confirmed it was real, but she wouldn't talk about whose baby it was until the paternity test. I asked when that would happen. He said the baby had to be born first, or they could do a non-invasive test during pregnancy, but it cost around $1,500, and Jessica refused. Tyler said he wasn't waiting 9 months for answers. He said he was going to demand the test as part of the divorce proceedings. I said I supported him. He said thanks, and that he was glad I exposed them. He said if I hadn't, he would still be in the dark. On Wednesday, March 18th, I went to work for the first time since the dinner. I work as a project manager at a construction company in downtown Denver. My boss, Karen, noticed I looked tired. I told her I was going through a divorce. She was supportive. She said to take whatever time I needed. I appreciated that, but I wanted to work. Work kept my mind busy. At lunch, I got a text from Linda. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to be rude. Linda had always been kind to me. I said yes. We met at a Starbucks on Colfax at 1 p.m. Linda looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red. She said she was heartbroken about everything. She said she never thought Mark would do something like this. I said I didn't either. She asked if there was any chance I would reconsider the divorce. I said no. She said she understood, but it hurt to see the family fall apart. I said Mark and Jessica were the ones who tore it apart, not me. She agreed. Then she said something that surprised me. She said Robert had kicked Mark out of the house. I asked what she meant. She said after I left on Saturday, Robert told Mark he was ashamed to call him his son. Mark had been staying at a friend's house since Sunday. I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me was glad Robert took my side. Part of me felt bad that Mark was losing his family too. But mostly, I just felt numb. Linda said she wanted me to know that she still considered me family, no matter what happened. That made me cry. She hugged me in the middle of Starbucks. Then she paid for my coffee and left. On Friday, March 20th, the process server delivered the divorce papers to Mark at his office. Patricia called to confirm. She said Mark had 21 days to respond. I asked what would happen if he didn't. She said we could proceed with a default judgment. I said, okay. That night, Mark called me 11 times. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. In one, he was crying. He said he didn't want this. He said he would fight the divorce. In another, he was angry. He said I was ruining his life. I deleted all of them. Tyler called on Saturday, March 21st. He said Jessica had finally agreed to the paternity test. The appointment was scheduled for March 30th. It was a blood test that could determine paternity while she was pregnant. The results would take about a week. He said he was terrified of what they would show. I said I understood. I was terrified too. If the baby was Mark's, it meant their affair was even worse than I thought. On March 25th, I went back to the house again. This time I brought Amy with me. We packed up more of my things. Mark wasn't there, but I could tell he had been. There were more empty bottles. The bed wasn't made. The trash was overflowing. It looked like he was falling apart. Amy said he deserved it. I didn't disagree. While we were packing, I found something in Mark's nightstand. It was a receipt from a jewelry store called Trice Jewelers. The date was February 10th. The item was a necklace. The price was $890. My stomach turned. I thought maybe he bought it for me for our anniversary, which was in April. But then I saw another receipt under it. Same store, same date, earrings, $620. That's when I realized. He bought Jessica the earrings, the ones she wore at Christmas, the ones I found in his car. I took pictures of both receipts and sent them to Patricia. She said it was more evidence of the affair and could be used to show he spent marital funds on another woman. I also sent the photos to Tyler. He didn't respond, but I knew he saw them. Amy asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know anymore. Every day I found something new that made it worse. On March 30th, Tyler texted me. He said the paternity test was done. Results would come back around April 6th. He said Jessica cried the whole time. He said he felt nothing watching her. He said whatever love he had for her was gone. I knew exactly how he felt. April came. I kept working. I kept staying at Amy's. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Ellen Brooks. She had an office in Cherry Creek. I went every Thursday at 6 p.m. It helped to talk to someone neutral. She said I was processing trauma and betrayal. She said it was normal to feel angry, sad, confused, all at once. She said healing would take time. On April 6th, Tyler called. His voice was flat. He said the results came back. The baby was Mark's. I felt like someone punched me in the chest. Tyler said he was done. He said the divorce papers were already filed, and he was asking for everything. The house, the cars, their savings. He said Jessica could have Mark and the baby and nothing else. I didn't know what to say. I asked if he was okay. He said no, but he would be. Then he said something I will never forget. He said, "At least we both know the truth now." I agreed. The truth hurt, but it was better than living in lies. But the truth was about to get even more complicated, because 2 days later, Jessica showed up at my office, and what she told me changed everything. Jessica showed up at my office on Wednesday, April 8th at 4:30 p.m. I was in a meeting with Karen and 2 contractors when the receptionist called. She said someone named Jessica was in the lobby asking to see me. My first instinct was to say no, but curiosity won. I told the receptionist to give me 5 minutes. I finished the meeting and went downstairs. Jessica was sitting on a bench near the entrance. She looked terrible. Her hair was messy, her face was pale, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing sweatpants and an old jacket. When she saw me, she stood up. She asked if we could talk somewhere private. I didn't want to, but I also wanted to hear what she had to say. I took her to a small conference room on the first floor. We sat across from each other. She didn't look at me at first. Then she said she was sorry. She said it over and over. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." I told her, sorry didn't fix anything. She nodded. She said she knew that. Then she said she needed to tell me something, and that Mark didn't know she was here. I asked what it was. She said the baby wasn't planned. She said she had been on birth control, but it failed. She found out she was pregnant in early March, a week before Robert's birthday dinner. She said she didn't know if it was Tyler's or Mark's. She said she was terrified. I asked why she was telling me this. She said because Tyler had kicked her out, her mother didn't want to talk to her, and Mark was acting crazy. I asked what she meant by crazy. She said Mark had been calling her nonstop since the paternity results came back. He wanted to be involved with the baby. He wanted them to be together. He said he was leaving me, and they could start a life together. Jessica said she didn't want that. She said the affair was a mistake, and she never wanted it to turn into this. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I said you didn't want it to turn into this, but you kept doing it for 8 months. She said she knew it was wrong. She said she felt trapped. She said Mark kept saying they were meant to be together, that we were both in bad marriages, that this was fate. I asked if she believed that. She said no. She said she missed Tyler. She said she made the worst mistake of her life. I asked why she came to me. She said she didn't know where else to go. She said Mark was obsessed. She showed me her phone. There were 47 missed calls from him in the last 2 days. There were texts saying he loved her, that they were having a baby together, that she couldn't ignore him. One text said, "You're mine now." That one made my skin crawl. I asked if she felt unsafe. She said she didn't know. She said Mark kept showing up at her mother's house. Her mother told him to leave, but he came back. Yesterday, April 7th, he waited outside until Jessica came out. He tried to talk to her. She told him to go away. He grabbed her arm. She pulled away and went back inside. Her mother threatened to call the police. Mark finally left. I didn't know what to say. This was a side of Mark I had never seen. Jessica asked if he had ever been like this with me. I said no. During our marriage, Mark was calm, logical, maybe too logical. He never raised his voice. He never grabbed me. But now he was unraveling. Jessica said she was scared. She asked if I thought she should get a restraining order. I said yes. She asked if I could help her. I said I wasn't a lawyer, but I could give her Patricia's number. She wrote it down. Then she asked if I hated her. I thought about it. I said I didn't hate her, but I didn't forgive her either. I said what she did destroyed 2 marriages. She started crying. She said she knew. She said she would regret it for the rest of her life. I stood up. I said I had to get back to work. She asked if she could call me if she needed help. I said no. I said she made her choices, and now she had to deal with them. She nodded. She wiped her face and left. I watched her walk out of the building. I felt strange. Part of me felt bad for her. Part of me didn't. That night, I called Tyler. I told him about Jessica's visit. He said he wasn't surprised Mark was acting crazy. He said Mark had called him too, asking to meet up and talk. Tyler said he told Mark to go to hell. I asked if he was worried about Jessica. He said no. He said she could handle herself. I wasn't so sure. On Friday, April 10th, Mark called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. He said my name. I almost hung up. He said, "Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." I asked what he wanted. He said he wanted to explain. I said there was nothing to explain. He said I didn't understand what happened. I said I understood perfectly. He cheated with Jessica for 8 months, and now she was pregnant with his baby. He said it wasn't supposed to happen like this. He said he loved me, but he also had feelings for Jessica. He said it was confusing. I said it wasn't confusing. He made a choice every time he texted her, every time he booked a hotel, every time he lied to me. He was quiet. Then he said the divorce didn't have to happen. He said we could still fix this. I asked if he was serious. He said yes. He said Jessica didn't want to be with him, so maybe we could start over. I laughed again. I said, "You think I would take you back after everything? After you got another woman pregnant?" He said people make mistakes. I said this wasn't a mistake. This was a betrayal. Then I hung up. On April 14th, Patricia called. She said Mark had filed a response to the divorce. He was contesting it. He wanted to keep the house and half of our savings. He was also asking for spousal support because he claimed I made more money than him. Patricia said that wasn't true. We made about the same. She said we would fight it. I asked how much this would cost. She said probably another $5,000 in legal fees. I said fine. I wasn't going to let him win. On April 18th, Jessica called me. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She said Mark had shown up at her mother's house again. This time he was banging on the door at 10 p.m. Her mother called the police. They came and told Mark to leave. He did, but he sat in his car down the street for 2 hours. Jessica said she filed for a restraining order that morning. The hearing was scheduled for April 22nd. She asked if I would come and testify. I said no. She said please, it would help her case. I said I wasn't getting involved. She hung up. But on April 20th, Mark did something that made me change my mind. He broke into Amy's apartment. I wasn't there. I was at work. Amy called me at 2 p.m. crying. She said she came home for lunch and found Mark in her living room. He said he needed to talk to me. She told him to get out. He said he just wanted to know where I was. She said she would call the police. He left, but not before saying he wasn't giving up. Amy was shaking when I got there at 3 p.m. The police came and took a report. They said because Mark didn't take anything or hurt anyone, it was just trespassing. They said Amy could press charges if she wanted. She said yes. They said they would contact Mark. I called Patricia. She said this was escalating. She said I should consider getting my own restraining order. I said, okay. On April 22nd, I went to the courthouse for Jessica's restraining order hearing. I didn't testify, but I sat in the back and watched. Jessica told the judge about Mark showing up, grabbing her, sitting outside her mother's house. The judge granted a temporary restraining order for 6 months. Mark wasn't there. The order was served to him that afternoon. On April 25th, I filed my own restraining order. The hearing was on April 29th. Mark showed up to that one. He sat across the courtroom and stared at me. I told the judge about the break-in at Amy's, about the constant calls, about the threatening texts. Patricia presented evidence. Mark's lawyer, a guy named Steve Hoffman, said Mark was just trying to save his marriage. The judge didn't buy it. She granted my restraining order too. Mark had to stay at least 100 yards away from me. When we left the courthouse, Mark was standing by his car. He looked at me. He didn't say anything. He just looked. It scared me. Tyler texted me that night. He said Jessica told him about the restraining orders. He said Mark was losing it. He asked if I was safe. I said I thought so, but I wasn't sure anymore, because the next week, Mark did something that made me realize he wasn't just losing it. He was dangerous. On Tuesday, May 5th, I was walking to my car after work around 6 p.m. I park in a garage on 16th Street, 2 blocks from my office. It was light out, but the garage was dimly lit. When I got to my car, I saw something on the windshield, a note. It was folded and stuck under the wiper. I looked around. The garage was empty. I unfolded the note. It was Mark's handwriting. You can't hide forever. We need to talk. I felt cold. The restraining order said he had to stay 100 yards away. This meant he had been right here, touching my car. I called the police immediately. 2 officers arrived in 10 minutes. I showed them the note and the restraining order. They took photos. They said they would arrest Mark for violating the order. I gave them his address. He was staying with a friend named Dave in Wheat Ridge. That night, I stayed at Amy's, but I couldn't sleep. Every noise made me jump. At 11 p.m., the police called. They said they went to Dave's house, but Mark wasn't there. Dave said Mark had packed a bag and left 2 days ago. He didn't know where he went. Now Mark was missing, and the police were looking for him. The next day, Wednesday, May 6th, I didn't go to work. I worked from Amy's apartment. I kept the doors locked and the blinds closed. At noon, Tyler called. He said the police had called him too. Mark hadn't shown up for work since Monday. His boss had fired him. Tyler said Jessica was terrified. She had moved out of her mother's house and was staying at a hotel under a different name. I asked Tyler if he knew where Mark could be. He said no. He said Mark had withdrawn $12,000 from his personal savings account on Monday. That was almost everything he had. Tyler said Mark might be planning to leave the state. I hoped he was right. I hoped he was driving to California or New York, far away from us. But on Thursday, May 7th, I found out Mark wasn't leaving. He was watching. I received an email at my personal address at 2:30 p.m. The subject line was, family. I opened it. It was from a generic Gmail account, something like john.doe1234. Inside, there was no text, just photos. Photos of me walking into my office building. Photos of Jessica coming out of a grocery store. Photos of Tyler at a gas station. And photos of Amy's apartment building. The photos were time-stamped from the last 3 days. Mark had been following all of us. I forwarded the email to the police detective, Detective Miller, who was handling my case. He called me 5 minutes later. He said they were tracing the IP address. He told me to stay put and not go anywhere alone. 2 hours later, Miller called back. The email was sent from a public library in Lakewood. They sent officers there, but Mark was gone. However, a librarian recognized his photo. She said he had been there for hours, using a computer in the back. She said he looked disheveled and agitated. On Friday, May 8th, things escalated. Jessica called me at 9 a.m. She was hysterical. She said she received a package at her mother's house. Her mother had forwarded it to her hotel. Inside was a baby blanket, a blue one, and a note that said, "For our son, see you soon." Jessica said she hadn't told anyone the gender of the baby yet. She didn't even know it herself. but Mark seemed convinced it was a boy. Detective Miller said they were putting a patrol car outside Amy's apartment and Jessica's hotel. He said Mark was becoming unpredictable. I asked if they could track his phone. Miller said Mark's phone had been turned off since Tuesday. He was off the grid. That weekend, May 9th and 10th, was Mother's Day weekend. It was supposed to be a happy time. Instead, we were all living in fear. Linda called me on Sunday. She was crying. She asked if I had heard from Mark. I said no, but the police were looking for him. She said she felt like she had failed as a mother. She said Mark had always been the good one, the responsible one. She couldn't understand what happened. I told her it wasn't her fault, but I knew she didn't believe me. On Monday, May 11th, I went back to work. I couldn't hide forever. Detective Miller said it was okay as long as I was careful. The patrol car followed me to the office. I parked in a different garage this time, one with security guards. I felt safer during the day, surrounded by people. But that evening, when I was leaving work at 5:30 p.m., I saw him, Mark. He was standing across the street, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. He was watching the building entrance. My heart started pounding. I turned around and went back inside. I told the security guard. He called the police. When the police arrived, Mark was gone, but the security cameras caught him. Detective Miller confirmed it was him. He said Mark looked thinner, like he hadn't been eating. Miller said they were widening the search. They put out a bolo. Be on the lookout for Mark's car. On Tuesday, May 12th, they found his car. It was parked in a residential street in Capitol Hill, 3 blocks from Amy's apartment. It had been there for 2 days, according to a neighbor. The car was empty. But inside, they found a map of Denver with circles drawn around 3 locations: my office, Amy's apartment, and Jessica's mother's house. Miller called me and said they believed Mark was on foot now. He said I needed to leave Amy's apartment. It wasn't safe anymore. He suggested I stay at a hotel or with a friend Mark didn't know. I called Rachel. She lived in a secure condo building in Lodo. She said I could stay with her. I packed a bag and took an Uber to Rachel's. I didn't tell anyone where I was going except Detective Miller and Amy. I felt like a fugitive in my own city. That night, Rachel and I ordered pizza and tried to watch a movie, but I couldn't focus. I kept checking my phone. At 10 p.m., my phone rang. It was Tyler. He sounded panicked. He said Jessica was missing. I asked what he meant. He said she went out to get food an hour ago and hadn't come back. Her phone was going straight to voicemail. He called the hotel front desk, and they said she left at 9 p.m. and got into a dark sedan. Tyler said she didn't call an Uber. He thought Mark had her. I called Detective Miller immediately. He said they were already on it. They were pulling traffic camera footage near the hotel. He told me to stay inside and lock the doors. I waited. 1 hour passed. 2 hours. Rachel sat with me, holding my hand. At 1 a.m., Miller called. They found the car on a traffic camera heading west on I-70 toward the mountains. The license plate came back to a rental car reported stolen 2 days ago. They were setting up roadblocks. I couldn't breathe. Mark had Jessica, and she was pregnant with his baby. I thought about the note. See you soon. I thought about the map. I thought about everything. At 3 a.m., my phone rang again. It wasn't Miller. It was Mark. I answered. I put it on speaker so Rachel could hear. Mark's voice was calm. Too calm. He said, "Sarah." I said, "Where is she, Mark?" He said, "She's with me. We're going to be a family." I asked where they were. He said, "Somewhere beautiful. Somewhere we can start over." I heard Jessica crying in the background. She was screaming, "Let me go, please, Mark." Then the line went dead. I called Miller and told him everything. He said they were tracing the call. 10 minutes later, he called back. The signal pinged off a tower near Georgetown, about an hour west of Denver. They were sending units there. I spent the rest of the night staring at the phone, waiting for news. I prayed Jessica was okay. I prayed the baby was okay. And I prayed the police would find them before Mark did something he couldn't take back. But when dawn broke on Wednesday, May 13th, the news we got wasn't what anyone expected. At 6:30 a.m. on Wednesday, May 13th, Detective Miller called. They had found the car. It was parked at a trailhead near Guanella Pass, high in the mountains. The car was empty. but there were footprints in the snow leading up the trail. Miller said a SWAT team and search and rescue were on their way up. He told me to stay at Rachel's. I called Tyler. He was already driving up there. He said he couldn't sit at home waiting. I told him to be careful. He said he didn't care about safety. He just wanted Jessica back. His voice broke when he said it. Despite everything, the affair, the lies, the baby, he still loved her. Or maybe he just didn't want the mother of his nieces or nephews to die. I didn't ask. The hours dragged on. Rachel made coffee, but I couldn't drink it. I watched the local news. They were reporting a police situation near Georgetown but didn't give details. I knew the details. My husband had kidnapped his pregnant sister-in-law and dragged her up a snowy mountain. It sounded like a movie, but it was my life. At 10 a.m., Miller called again. They had located them. Mark was in an old mining cabin about 2 miles up the trail. He had barricaded the door. Jessica was inside with him. The police had established a perimeter and were trying to negotiate. Miller said Mark had a gun. He hadn't used it, but he was threatening to if anyone came close. I felt sick. Mark didn't own a gun, at least not that I knew of. He must have bought it illegally or stolen it. The Mark I knew, the one who cried during sad movies, who was afraid of spiders, was gone. This was someone else, a stranger wearing my husband's face. Miller asked if I would talk to Mark. He said the negotiator thought hearing my voice might calm him down. I said yes, anything to end this. They patched me through to the negotiator's phone. He was standing near the cabin. He handed the phone to another officer who held it up to a megaphone, but then they decided to try calling Mark's cell first. Mark answered. "Sarah?" he said. His voice sounded tired. "Mark?" I said. "Please, let her go." "I can't," he said. "If I let her go, they'll take me to prison." "I can't go to prison, Sarah. We can work this out." I lied. "Just come out. Nobody has to get hurt." "It's too late," he said. "I ruined everything. I know that. But this is my chance to fix it. We're going to be a family. Mark, she doesn't want to be with you," I said. "She wants to go home. She doesn't know what she wants." He yelled. "She's scared, but I'll take care of her. And the baby. The baby needs a doctor, Mark," I said. "It's cold up there. Jessica is stressed. You could hurt the baby." Silence. Then he said, "I would never hurt my son." "Then prove it," I said. "Let her walk out. You stay. Just let her go." He didn't answer for a long time. Then I heard Jessica's voice. She was sobbing. "Mark, please. My stomach hurts." "What?" Mark said. "My stomach," she cried. "Something's wrong. Please." I heard shuffling. Mark came back on the line. "She's bleeding," he said, panic in his voice. "Sarah, she's bleeding." "Mark, you have to let her go now," I screamed. "She could be losing the baby. She needs a hospital." "No, no, no," he muttered. "Not the baby. Open the door, Mark," I said. "Do it for your son." The line went dead. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then Miller came back on the line. "He's coming out," he said. "He's surrendering." I collapsed onto Rachel's floor. I heard the police radio in the background. "Suspect in custody. Victim is secured. She needs medical attention immediately. Ambulance is en route." Mark was arrested. Jessica was airlifted to a hospital in Denver. It was over, or so I thought. I went to the hospital that afternoon. Tyler was there. Linda and Robert were there too. They looked 10 years older. Linda hugged me and cried. Robert just nodded at me, his eyes full of shame. Tyler told me Jessica was in surgery. She had a miscarriage. The stress, the cold, the trauma, it was too much. She lost the baby. Mark's baby. I felt a wave of sadness, not for Mark, but for the innocent life that never had a chance. And strangely, for Jessica. She had lost everything in one day. Her lover, her baby, and likely her marriage. Mark was charged with kidnapping, assault, and unlawful possession of a weapon. He was held without bail. I didn't go to see him. I never wanted to see him again. 2 days later, on Friday, May 15th, I visited Jessica in her hospital room. She looked small in the bed. Her skin was gray. When she saw me, she started crying. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. "It's over now. "The baby," she choked out. "I heard," I said. "I'm sorry." She looked out the window. "Maybe it's for the best," she said. "A baby born into this mess. It wouldn't have been fair." I didn't argue. She was probably right. Tyler walked in then. He looked at me, then at Jessica. He stood by the bed, but he didn't hold her hand. "The doctor said you can go home tomorrow," he said. "Home?" Jessica asked. "To your mother's," Tyler said. "I packed the rest of your things. They're at her house." Jessica closed her eyes. Tears leaked out. She knew. It was really over. I left the hospital and drove to my house. My empty, quiet house. I walked through the rooms. I saw the pictures on the wall. Me and Mark in Hawaii. Me and Mark at our wedding. I took them down, one by one. I put them in a box. I packed Mark's clothes. I packed his books. I packed every trace of him. I called Patricia. I told her Mark was in jail and I wanted the divorce finalized as soon as possible. She said with the criminal charges, it would be easy. Mark wouldn't be able to contest anything now. Months passed. The divorce was final in October. I got the house. Mark got prison. He pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. He got 15 years. Jessica moved to Arizona to live with an aunt. Tyler sold their house and moved to a condo downtown. We didn't talk much, but we sent Christmas cards. I thought that was the end of the story. I thought I had closed the book. But life has a way of adding epilogues you didn't ask for. 1 year later, on a Tuesday in May, I received a letter from prison. It was from Mark. I almost threw it away, but I opened it. "Sarah," it said, "I know you hate me. I deserve it, but there's one thing you don't know. One thing I never told anyone, not even the police. It's about that night in the cabin. Before I surrendered, Jessica told me something that changes everything." I stopped reading. My heart hammered. What could she have told him? "She told me the baby wasn't mine." The letter continued. "She lied about the paternity test. She paid someone to fake the results. The baby was Tyler's. She told me because she wanted to hurt me, to make me realize I destroyed my life for nothing. And she was right. I lost you. I lost my freedom. And I lost a child that wasn't even mine." I stared at the paper. Was it true? Or was it just another lie from a desperate man? I drove to Tyler's condo that evening. I showed him the letter. He read it twice. His face was unreadable. "Did you know?" I asked. He looked at me. "Does it matter?" "Yes," I said. "If the baby was yours." "She lost the baby, Sarah," he said. "It's gone. She's gone. Mark is gone." "But did you know?" I pressed. He walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. "I suspected," he said softly. "We slept together a few times in March. Before she left. It was possible." "And why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to punish them," he said. He turned to me, and his eyes were cold. "I wanted Mark to think he ruined everything. I wanted him to feel the weight of that baby, and I wanted Jessica to live with the lie." I looked at him. The brother who seemed like the victim. The lawyer who knew how to manipulate facts. He had played his own game. "You let Mark think he was fighting for his son," I said. "That's why he snapped. That's why he kidnapped her." "Mark snapped because he's weak," Tyler said. "I didn't tell him to buy a gun. I didn't tell him to climb a mountain." I realized then that there were no heroes in this story, just broken people hurting each other. I took the letter back. "Goodbye, Tyler," I said. "Goodbye, Sarah," he said. I walked out into the cool night air. I tore the letter into tiny pieces and threw them in a trash can. The truth didn't set anyone free. It just bound us tighter in knots. But now, finally, I was cutting the cord. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't look back. I had a life to rebuild, and this time I was going to build it on my own terms, with no lies, no secrets, and definitely no pearls. 3 years later, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Lodo, waiting for a client. It was a sunny Tuesday in May. The trees were green, people were walking their dogs, and life felt normal. Finally, normal. I had sold the house in Highlands a year after the divorce. Too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place near Wash Park. Just me and a golden retriever named Buster. I was scrolling through my phone when I saw a news alert. Inmate found dead in cell. I clicked on it. The name jumped out at me like a slap. Mark. My coffee cup rattled as I put it down. Mark was dead. Suicide. He had been in prison for 3 years. He had 12 left. I guess he couldn't take it anymore. Or maybe the guilt finally ate him alive. Or maybe he just realized there was nothing waiting for him on the outside. I felt nothing. No sadness. No relief. Just a strange emptiness. Like closing a book you didn't enjoy reading. I called Linda. She was hysterical. Robert was shouting in the background. They blamed me, of course. In their minds, if I hadn't exposed the affair, Mark would still be alive. If I had just kept quiet, we would all still be playing happy family. But I knew the truth. The truth is a cancer. If you don't cut it out, it kills you anyway. The funeral was small. I didn't go. I sent flowers with a card that said, "Rest in peace." It was the most I could do. Tyler went. He told me later that Jessica came too. She drove up from Arizona. She didn't speak to anyone. She just stood at the back, wearing black, looking like a shadow of the woman she used to be. Tyler said she looked old, tired. Tyler and I had coffee a week after the funeral. It was the first time we had really talked in 2 years. He had remarried, a nice woman named Karen. They were expecting a baby, a girl. He looked happy. But when he talked about Mark, his eyes went dark. "I never wanted him dead," Tyler said. "I know," I said. "I just wanted him to pay." "He paid," I said. "We all did." We talked about the past for a while, about the dinners, the holidays, the lies. It felt like talking about a movie we saw a long time ago. The details were fuzzy. The pain was dull. "Did you ever find someone?" Tyler asked. "I'm dating," I said. "A guy named David. He's an architect. He's nice. Normal. Normal is good," Tyler said. "Yeah," I said. "Normal is underrated." We said goodbye in the parking lot. I watched him drive away, the last link to my old life. I got in my car and drove to Wash Park. I took Buster for a walk. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and orange. It was beautiful. I thought about the earring, that tiny piece of metal and pearl that started it all. If I hadn't looked under the seat that day, if I hadn't recognized it, maybe I would still be married to Mark. Maybe I would be cooking dinner for him right now, listening to him lie about his day. Maybe Jessica would be at the table, smiling at me while sleeping with my husband. I shivered. No, I was glad I found it. I was glad I burned it all down, because in the ashes, I found myself. I found a woman who was stronger than I thought. A woman who wouldn't settle for less than the truth. I walked to the edge of the lake. I reached into my pocket. I had kept the earring, not for sentimental reasons, but as a reminder, a trophy maybe, or a warning. I looked at it one last time. It gleamed in the fading light. Then I threw it. It made a tiny splash and disappeared into the dark water. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like pine and rain. I called Buster. He came running, tail wagging. "Let's go home, boy," I said. We walked back to the car. I didn't look back at the lake. I didn't look back at the past. I turned the key in the ignition and drove forward, into my life, my real, messy, beautiful, honest life. And if you're watching this and thinking, "I would never do what she did," or "she was too harsh," ask yourself one question. If you found the proof that your entire life was a lie, would you close your eyes? Or would you burn it down to find the truth? Tell me in the comments. Would you have worn the earring to that dinner? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. I'm Sarah, and this was my truth. Take care. Until next time.